The earliest deer-related find we have from Dumfries and Galloway is this Mesolithic harpoon, Mesolithic, the Middle Stone Age, dated approximately 7,000 years ago from side of the River Dee near Cumston. And this map shows the range of Mesolithic sites around Scotland where deer-related remains have been found. Not only do we get these harpoons and spear points, there are also sharp-pointed instruments, possibly for flaking flints or for use as awls for putting holes in leather garments. And it's assumed that they are not just utilising the antlers of the deer, they will be using the other bits, but the other bits are organic remains and as such rarely survive in the archaeological record. In the Neolithic period, there is a wider range of materials that have been found. So apart from the utilitarian ones, like using the socket to help affix a stone axe head to a wooden haft, there's also the use of pins, the use of beads, the use of antler pendants. So we're beginning to see a much broader range of utilisation of the antler. And for instance, this is a Bronze Age pin dating to about 3,500 years ago, that was found on excavations on the site of the new academy at Lockerbie. And we know that continuing through into the late prehistoric period in the Iron Age, deer are quite clearly an important resource. This is a drawing of a stone carving at Garlaston, near to Wigtown, and as you can see there are pictures. There's a very fine picture of a red deer, a sketch of a deer below that, and a peculiar hybrid at the bottom that appears to have started out potentially as a drawing of a deer but seems to have morphed into a ram somewhere in the process. And again, the Iron Age is the earliest period at which we get the survival of organic remains. This is a copy of a deerskin shoe that was found during the draining of a loch at Lochmaben. And we have, from a number of Crannog and other waterlogged sites in the area in the Iron Age, we have a number of surviving fragments of leatherwork primarily associated with footwear. From just outside Dumfries and Galloway, but up in Ayrshire, we have the deerskin fragments from Loch Glashan in Ayrshire. And originally, when first found, these had been interpreted as part of a leather tunic, but a reappraisal in the early 2000s, a reinterpretation of the evidence at the National Museum in Edinburgh, has indicated that these are in fact fragments from a deerskin bag, which has been reconstructed here by a friend of mine. And this shows that deerskin products are widely used. There are a lot of stone carving depictions of people carrying bags of this sort, but the Loch Glashan bag is actually the only one in Scotland that has ever been found. And on the excavations at Whitthorn, which I participated in the late 1980s and through the 1990s, we found extensive use of deer and deer-related material. We got a number of paired antler working workshops in which we could identify by looking at the waist that the preliminary division of the antler, probably done by apprentices in one building, and then the fine finished objects were finished off by a master craftsman in the adjacent building. And we found these paired groups of buildings with associated identical waste distributions across a number of periods ranging from the late 9th through to the late 11th century. And these are partly shown in a display that's now at the Whitthorn Trust Museum. Well, the main products of Whitthorn were antler combs, frequently described as bone combs in earlier archaeological reports, but more recent archaeological works will describe these as antler. Now we have a better way of analysing them. And they're composite combs. They're made of a separate series of plates, tooth plates, which are then riveted between two side plates and then have the teeth cut into them. And this way, if some of the teeth broke, you simply took out one plate of teeth and replaced that. And it appears that repairing broken combs appears to have been as much part of their repertoire as building new ones. We found that the plates were made to standardise widths, so it's easy to take one out and replace it with a different one. These are two of the finished combs that were broken and were lost on the site and recovered during the excavations. And one of the main reasons for using antler rather than bone is that in terms of strength for the teeth when you're combing it, in terms of lateral strength, antler is 6 times stronger than bone when it comes to lateral force. We also found a number of knife handles, mostly plain, but this one, which may be the top of a walking cane, is an exceptionally finely carved piece in the Viking Ernest artistic style, which is dated to the late 11th, early 12th century. And we also found a number of gaming pieces made from the tips of tines that are then cut and faceted, and some of these were found in association with gaming boards carved onto the stone pavements outside the workshops. In fact, in one case, we even found a cut silver halfpenny wedged between two of the stones, and it may well have been that there was some element of gambling on the outcome of the games. And a large quantity of antler waste, usually the burr of the antler and the junctions between the beam and the tine, where the grains run in two directions, so they're not actually suitable for turning into finished products. And throughout the excavation, what the 3,500 pieces of antler remains that we found have actually enabled us to then look at a complete antler and work out how it was divided, how it was butchered up, and how the individual sections of beams and tine tips were then used to create a number of different artifacts. And in association with this, one of the easiest ways of getting antler that we know that they did was to put wooden stakes in the ground during the in season to enable the deer to actually rub against the post rod and trees and collect them all in one spot. And these may well have taken place at the deer trap sites, which can be recognised in the landscape by the Elrig place names. So this is a distribution map for the Elrig or Elric place names that occur in Western Galloway. And it can be seen, the dark grey shading on this is the modern forestry. It can be seen how a lot of it is associated with forest and forested lands. And to continue just beyond the early historic and prehistoric periods, we do have 2 examples of well-preserved medieval deer parks within the region. One around Sanker Castle, which is a closed-in deer dyke, and another one at Morton Castle, where the remains are the long brown line seen on the map on the right, which is a combination of earthworks and stone dykes designed to catch the deer in the evening as they move up and down the river valley. And this is a surviving portion of the dyke wall at Sanker, probably much reduced from its original height with the castle in the background. But this shows that within Dumfries and Galloway we do have extensive archaeological evidence for man's interaction with deer from prehistory through to the medieval period.